Hi, this is Eric from longboxreview.com. Welcome to the show. This is Sunday, November 4th, and this is Breaking Late News. And joining me, as always, fresh off his marathon run, I assume anyway, because he looks kind of haggard, uh, of Red Dead Redemption. I screwed it up anyway. Red Dead Redemption 2. It's Travis. Hey, Travis.
Yes, I'm growing the beard just for it. Anyway,
No, you totally have the look.
just missing the hat.
Exactly. I totally. I don't know what kind of hat. What kind of hat would you? Would it be like one of those straight, wide brimmed hats, or
Oh
would it be
yes.
like your
Oh yes.
typical, stereotypical
Oh
cowboy
no,
hat?
no. I got rid of that as soon as I could and went straight for the straight brimmed hat. Let me tell you. Yep.
You got the
What
boots
I
and
can
the
say
duster.
is what I can say is so far I have a duster, but I want a poncho, and so far I haven't been able to find one in the new game. So that it's lacking as far as that goes. But I haven't played very deep in yet. Work's been keeping me from it. So.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually the case. I was teasing with Travis. I know he's a huge Red Dead Redemption fan.
Yeah.
I think you said, Travis, isn't that your favorite video game?
It is. It is.
Yeah.
And not that this has anything to do with anything, but this this last week is when it was released. And it has made more money than any other entertainment product ever.
No kidding.
It's outsold in its opening. It's outsold Avatar. It's outsold, all the movies. Oh yeah. Like what is it? Like $743 million worth of sales in the opening of it.
Okay.
Something like
that. So I assume then that the workers who are working, I don't know, atrocious hours to get this game out, I heard, will get some bonuses.
You would think. I don't know. I think it's the two guys that own Rockstar, games, are the people who are going to be be filthy rich. But I don't know. It's awesome. What little bit of I've gotten to play has been great. So.
Well,
if I could figure out how to just take a month off and just play it, I would.
Well, you when the first game came out and you were talking about it during our MMO sessions for, I don't know, I think it was the last time, City of Heroes, or was that?
Oh yeah, it would have been.
Would have been okay. And so you intrigued me with the discussion that you had with Lee about this game. I think it was Lee, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Who was also playing it. Yeah, and so I also think that there was one time I was at your house and you showed me a little bit of the game. Maybe I'm thinking of my brother-in-law, but anyway, it looked really cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And isn't there in the previous game there was like a zombie patch or something?
Well, yeah, right. When it came to after it was released that next year when it came out, yeah, they put a DLC in it where it's the entire place is zombies, and you can ride the 4 horses of the apocalypse. If you catch them, lasso them, and break them, you could then ride around with war or pestilence or whatever. Yeah, yeah, which was a lot of fun.
So is that option available for this game right now?
Not yet. Yeah. Not yet. I think this version, because of the way video games have gone in general, at some point they will release a live version of the game where you play with everybody else, kind of a deal.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So, I mean, because this is basically the same people who do Grand Theft Auto, and the Grand Theft Auto, its online presence is, my understanding is huge, and they do lots of stuff for it and whatnot. I don't play that. But that's the intent with this. It'll basically be Grand Theft Auto, except it's going to be Red Dead Redemption stuff. So you'll have this. I mean, the original game had some online content too, which could either be really fun or really frustrating, like most, online stuff when you're suddenly having to play with everybody else that's out in the world and whatnot. You get the obnoxious 13-year-old who's got nothing to do all day except for play the game and get really, really good at it. And they wreck your day when you're just a casual gamer trying to do stuff. But I've also had lots of really fun experience. So I'm looking forward to that part of it too, to see what that is as they keep adding content to that to explore, the West at a time right when everything is starting to be quote unquote civilized, and how do you deal with being a part of a gang and a gunslinger when your world is rapidly disappearing around you. So what is that?
what does that mean exactly? What decade are we talking about? 1880s, 1890s?
1890s.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right at that. And this game is actually a prequel to the last one. The last game, you are the end. I mean, you're really at the end of it. You're a character that is coming, who's trying to clean up their act so the government will leave them alone so they can just go live with their wife and their kid as best they can. And they're basically charged with going back and arresting and or cleaning up the gang that they left. In this version of the game, you are playing in the gang that ends up getting cleaned up in the next 5 years or whatever. So you're really playing a dying breed. The fun thing is this is a long version of the game. So if you know all the other games, there are characters show up that are in the other games. You're seeing earlier versions of some of them or later versions, depending on what game it is. But all fun stuff if you're into the whole continuity end of how does that all tie together. And some of the people, it explains why in the last game, why they are the way they are. You're getting to see what happens to them that makes them the way they are. So,
cool. Well, like I said, I knew you were a big fan of the game, and so when I found out when it was coming out, and I put two unrelated things together, that and the fact that I noticed you haven't been on Twitter much. I thought, oh, he's just marathon gaming right now.
Yeah, I wish. No.
Yeah, it's other things in life.
No.
Yeah. I hear you, man. All right. Well, we're not here to talk video games. That's not our focus. Our focus is comic books, of course, and we're here to talk about some news that came out in the month of October. And quite honestly, those of you watching or listening, Travis and I talked briefly some days ago. About a week and a half ago, I think it was. And we were like, what, is there anything to talk about? Are we actually going to talk about it?
Exactly.
And so I called I went on the internet and called the comic book news, and turns out there were some things that I wanted to chat with Travis about. And he brought up something else for us to discuss. So we're going to get into that. There's not as much, I think, to talk about. But we tend to just gab along. So
yes, we have a lot of opinions.
Who knows how long this will actually be? However, based on the number of things here to talk about, it might be a shorter episode compared to some of the others that we've done before this. So anyway, first up, this is in the sales department, Travis. I was looking at Comicron.com, and I brought this up just because I thought it was interesting. We always hear the doom and gloom about how the industry is dying and
the end of comics. Yep.
Yeah, the end of comics and stuff like that. And while obviously, while things are not what they used to be, I always I follow a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of professionals on Twitter, people who work for Marvel and DC, or are freelancers that do work for all these companies. And so a lot of them are like, the industry's fine. It could be larger. We could sell more, but what business wouldn't say that, right?
Wouldn't want more. Right. Always. Sure.
So anyway, I just think it's an interesting point to touch on. But this is basically Comicron is reporting that the comic shop market, as I said, gained steam in the third quarter of 2018 as September comics and graphic novel orders rose 4% over the previous year, allowing the 3-month period to close up 6%. Now, single digits, but that's still pretty good, especially in comparison to the same period in 2017. It said, in all, orders during the past 6 months were up $9 million over that same period. $9 million. Now, that may not seem like a lot of money, considering it's DC and Marvel involved in this. I honestly don't know. I don't know how much money is actually in comics in general.
Exactly,
so
right.
I guess I should have looked that up before we started talking about it. But it also says the Oh, okay. Well, here we go. Here's a point of data. Uh, $45 million. The $45 million month of September was up 1.6 million, meaning that the year-to-year loss piled up this last winter, was cut in half for the third month in a row. So, you know,
That's
and
all
just like,
gains, right?
yeah, just like any business, though, you're going to have ups and downs. I think, about this time last year, people were lamenting the death of comics, for the
Again,
umpteenth time.
right?
And so this is encouraging news. But I also realize, like I said, these things go up, these things go down. That's just the nature of the business.
Right.
They also pointed out that at the time that I captured this information about a week ago, that Marvel's Return of Wolverine #1 led new comic sales, becoming the sixth comic to top 250,000 copies.
Mhm.
Not surprising. It's a new #1 for a quote unquote event comic
Right.
featuring a very popular character. Actually, I'm kind of surprised that it didn't sell more. But I have no context for that either.
Well,
That's
but
just
it's
a
it's
sense.
sold over 250,000. I mean,
Yeah.
it was the
Mhm.
sixth to go over 200,000, but it was also but it topped out at 250,000. So
Right, right.
right,
And so they gave a contrast to that. Only three comics topped 200,000 copies in all of 2017,
right,
and only two were above 250,000.
yeah,
So it's interesting. Remember when, or I don't know how much you pay attention to comic sales history, but that there was a time when comics sold. Well, wait, what was the last comic that sold like 1 million? Wasn't it? I don't know if it was last, but the one I'm thinking of is Jim Lee's X Men #1. It reportedly sold over 1 million
right.
copies, right? Is that, or am I just confusing things?
It could be. I don't remember. I know that depending on how you want to split the hairs, that when Marvel started up Star Wars, that it hit that market also, but that's because it was in like a bunch of loot crate boxes too. Is how that got published, but it had a huge publication too. But yeah, I mean that's the one that everybody talks about is Jim Lee's X-Men as being
Mm.
the pinnacle of sales.
Well, so interesting. What I found interesting though was, things are up, not a lot, but they're up.
Mhm, mhm.
I mean, we're talking millions. It's more than one, so it's
Right,
millions. And contrast that with the 250,000. Return of Wolverine being the sixth comic to top $250,000 or dollars, 250,000 copies. So while we're not talking, a million unit sales anymore or more, generally speaking, 200,000, 250,000, that's pretty good, right? For a book, whether it's #1 or not. That'd be interesting. I guess I should have looked this up. What are those comics from 2017 that top 200,000? Were those #1s? I would hazard a guess that they probably were. Given how things are in the comic book industry, #1s seem to sell a lot more copies, obviously.
right.
But it'd be interesting to find out what that data really means. We might have to come back to this, Travis, at some point and see. But anyway, things are up. Uh, uh, the Return of Wolverine sold 250,000 copies, so the industry's not dead. It might be a little slow, a little sluggish, but it's not. It's not totally. What I always get this. Mixed up. In the black is good, right? In the red is
Yes,
bad.
and the red is
Yeah.
bad. Right.
You know
Yeah.
why I say that? Because uh, uh, they always talk about those horrible stock market events as Black Mondays or Black Thursdays,
Right. Right.
and so then I always get the two colors confused because they're black is meaning two different things in those contexts.
Right.
So
Right.
anyway,
Well, from my world of business and whatnot, if you have a 6% gain over the year before, even if you're still operating in the red, that's big.
Mhm.
You know, that's significant. And trade sales, which you didn't really talk about because you were talking singles, trade sales are up 12% in comparison to last year. So, yeah, I mean, you know, big money. You know, and if it's going up, it's not going down. I mean, so last year was not a good year. There's always going to be years that aren't good years. You know, you know, like anything, it doesn't just trend up. At some point, it flattens out or takes a dip, or you know, whatever the case may be. So,
Yeah, I was just looking at the list too that Comicron published for the information that I'm talking about, and Marvel and DC are about neck and neck in terms of the top 10
mhm.
books. You know, there are no independent books on here.
In the single issues, yeah.
Yeah, single issues, of course. Yeah, I'm sure. Did they? I forget. Did they have a trade chart?
Yeah,
here?
the trades. It's like Saga,
Yeah, there we
Monstrous,
go.
Walking Dead. I mean, then
it's filled with.
Yeah, then it's
with
not. Then it's not the big two at all. So,
yeah,
and I think that just partially shows how those different types of books are consumed differently by a different by a different brand of comic book reader. Which is a whole other subject.
Yeah, the Comicron website has just a lot of information. If you're a data person,
and those sales just out of curiosity, because I didn't read over it super closely. Are we talking those are physical copies, or are we talking is that sales in general? I mean, because to the best of my knowledge, there's no official place that truly tells us what kind of revenue is being made or not made on digital comics, because I don't think they want to admit to what they're making or not making on digital comics. The companies are, because I think it would freak the brick and mortar stores out if they did. So,
based on, I mean, they don't say it explicitly, but you know, they say recovery in the comic shop market.
So that's Diamond sales
and copy shipping. So we're talking
Diamond sales.
Yeah.
So we're talking Diamond sales. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. They don't actually say that. They don't say diamond sales, but they're just talking generally about sales and copies and whatnot.
Well, that has to be the only way you'd be able to get it, because each individual store, how the comic book market unfortunately works is each individual store buys the comics from Diamond, and then they're bought, and then they try to resell them to us, the consumers.
Right. I'm sorry. Yeah, it does say at the very top.
Yeah.
In smaller text, based on reports from Diamond Comic distributors.
Right.
So there you go. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah, just interesting data set that I wanted to point out. Speaking of DC, there is they recently announced Oscar-winning writer John Ridley, who did 12 Years a Slave, some other things too, but I think that's probably the most prominent film that he's associated with. They announced his limited series called The Other History of the DC Universe. So longtime readers will know that back in 1985, right? 85?
Or 6?
86, might have been 86, you're right. I think it was 86, yeah, because 85 was with the start of Crisis on Infinite Earths. And then after that, they came out with a 2-issue prestige format
square bound
history of the DC Universe, which was really awesome. So now we have this other history of the DC Universe. And so as they said, this series will explore DC's past through the lens of characters from disenfranchised groups. Issue 1, with art by Alex Dos Diaz, will feature Black Lightning. Future issues will feature characters Karen and Mal Duncan, Bumblebee, and I forget Mal's superhero name. Travis, do you remember?
with the horn, what is it?
Yeah,
it's not minstrel. What is it?
I can't remember. Oh, I'm such a bad Titans fan.
I know. Oh.
Anyway, the Duncans.
Yes.
Tatsu Yamashiro, which is or who is oh boy, Katana? Is that Katana?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And Renee Montoya, of course,
Mhm,
from
mhm.
she's I don't what is she in the New 52 Rebirth era? Is she still a cop?
Yeah, she's a detective.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So she at one point she actually became the Question
Right.
in pre-Flashpoint timeline, which
Mhm,
I always liked that character, her becoming the Question.
mhm.
So, and we talked about this before, right? We were the Question and why not
What?
her instead of the other
Yep.
dude? Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Okay,
Last month.
I won't get into that again. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. It says this story isn't about saving the world; it's about having the strength to simply be who you are. I just thought this is. I mean, obviously, we haven't seen anything. I haven't anyway. They've only announced the one artist at the time that I captured this data or this information. So to me, this is a great idea. I'm always very open to bringing in new or fresh blood, so to speak. Someone bringing in people from other areas, not just the people who have been in the comic book industry
Mhm,
for years and years and years.
mhm.
Which is I know contrary to some aspects of the comic book reading community out there who think bring in people who haven't had a lot of comic book
They haven't earned it
writing
or whatever, right? Yeah.
or artist experience. Yeah, I don't understand that. That just to me that just breeds a kind of inbreeding, so to speak, of mm, impacting creativity and just doing the same old thing. Whereas
Right.
you bring in
Well,
these
you
new
need new voices.
perspectives,
Right. Mhm,
exactly.
mhm.
Yeah, and so
100%.
and you get someone who has. Did you see 12 Years a Slave?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually haven't. I think my wife did. I think she watched it without me.
Mm,
But it was definitely a movie that I thought looked really good
mhm.
and probably has. It was probably just a really good story.
Yeah.
So having this Mr. Ridley come in and do this, I think is a really, potentially a really interesting take on the DC universe.
I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, I like any take on the DC universe. If you're going to kind of give us a different version of the history, because me and you, of course, are big DC fans. So for me, anyway, I'm always tickled by anybody who wants to, take a poke at it. I'm doubly intrigued by let's tell a history from the eyes of the disenfranchised, the people that we normally would not, that we would not see that through, and then to from a purely representative point, it be written by somebody who would have a perspective on that per se me and you wouldn't, kind of a thing, is great too. I mean, that makes it for me interesting on a on a on our artistic and informative level beyond my just general geekiness with the DC universe, and be tickled anytime anybody wants to, you know, give me an encyclopedia of how the DC universe works, kind of a thing. So
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Is this a series that you would get as it comes out month to month or whatever the
yeah,
schedule is gonna be, or do you wait for a collection? Because this seems like a really good collection thing,
I will
or I
buy
guess
it.
both.
Yeah, I will buy it in singles. Um, One, because I want to see it as it's coming out, because that's how I am, and I like single issues. And two, I buy it in singles, so it ensures that we get to see the whole thing.
Well, and beyond that, more things like this.
Right. And
Yeah.
then if it's good, it's one of those things that, because I like the DC universe and whatnot, I get a nice version of it to sit on the bookshelf and go, "Ooh, look at this," kind of thing. So yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
Mhm.
What do you think of the particular characters that they've already identified? It seems like besides the Duncans, obviously Katana and Renee, those are pretty well known characters.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm sure some people would say the Duncans are also pretty well known.
They're
Um,
obscure.
I,
No, they're
I don't know.
obscure.
Bumblebee's in DC Superhero Girls now. They've been in.
Okay, yeah, but you're talking about such a a wide berth of audiences when you're talking, DC, superhero girls versus what this is going to be. It's not like maybe 15 years down the road, the kid that was reading that is going to turn around and read this other thing. But there's no, I think that's such a wide gap between content that you're not talking to the same audience whatsoever. So,
for sure.
So yes, Bumblebee was even briefly in Young Justice, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and so was her brother, actually, briefly. Except in there, he ends up being the Guardian. Doesn't he end up being the Guardian in that?
Mal?
In that, yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't he end? Yeah.
That's right, and that's who he was for a brief time in the 1970s Teen Titans series.
Right. Okay. So those characters are obscure. I'm sorry, they are. I mean, it's not it's not funny. It's not like Black Lightning, who has a TV show now, who is now going to be the lead focal of the Outsiders that's going to be starting up again. I think he's probably one of the easier named characters in it. I think he's I like the character. I like Pierce. I think he's an easy give me as far as the disenfranchised characters. I don't know. He strikes me as less disenfranchised. He is it an Olympian? Depending on how they're gonna work his history. He's got.
Sure, but he's still a black man in
100%,
in America. So that's
100%, right.
Yeah. So
I'm interested. I like all those characters. So I also think it would be intriguing if they were telling the story from somebody I really don't know's perspective too.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I wasn't thinking about this until we were just sitting here talking, but it's like, what other characters could they pull into this?
How many issues is it going to be? Do we even know that?
Oh, I don't know. You're right. Hold on. Let me vamp while I look this up, Travis.
Okay. But that's what I was thinking. Who else could you pull that would be, that might give you something else, some other kind of perspective. So, African American perspective, Hispanic perspective, Asian perspective. I don't know. I may be curious to see what
we could do in Native American. I mean, there's a lot of different characters there, and it's 5 issues. So if
that's it, then
Black Lightning,
right?
Katana, Renee, the Duncans. So that's 4. Who's going to be the other one? Or maybe that they all come
or is it a
blend?
Or is it a blend of all of them? I mean, is it literally going to be this issue's just this person, or are we going to see them maybe not together per se, but get over those issues? We get each of their stories crossing throughout the thing.
Oh, I didn't realize this. So this is, like I said, 5 issues. This is a prestige format.
Oh, okay.
Series.
Guess we should read the fine print.
It's $8 an issue. But so it says this series presents its story as prose by Ridley, married with beautifully realized color illustrations from a selection of exciting illustrators and comic artists.
Okay, I'm less excited about it now. So it's not a comic book. It's prose with pretty pictures.
It's extensively researched and masterfully executed, Travis.
Yeah, okay.
You may think you know the history of the DC universe, but the truth is far more complex. I don't know. So you're not a fan of illustrated prose comics?
Not so much. Now I'm more inclined to wait until there is some. Hopefully there is some fancy. Yeah, so I just have it all together.
Because I remember really loving those. When because we got a few like in the early 80s, as I recall. I remember a Firestorm.
Right, but there's stuff that's come out. There's stuff that's come out recently in the independent world, like the AD something. What was it? AD. I can't remember the exact title. That Scott Snyder and Jeff Lemire did, for instance, and I did not care for
Oh.
that. It would have spattering of sequential art in it, but then it would have also parts where it was just, you know, I had to actually read as opposed to look at pictures. Read. So I don't know. I don't know. That I mean, I'm still curious. I'm curious because I am a DCU history fan and whatnot. So that is something that I would pick up, but I don't know that I'm inclined to pick it up broken up into parts.
So
so like I want to get, I'm hoping Christmas is nice to me. I want to get the Ming Doyle book that's just come out, the DC, what is it? It has like the physics and biology of the DC universe.
Yeah.
But see, that all came out in one nice book. And that's not comics, but it's about comic book stuff. Mm-hmm. I want to get that. But it's all one book. If that had been released in like slices and chunks as this deluxe format, I wouldn't have gotten it. I wouldn't have been. I mean, it would be like, oh, that's cool, but not.
Well, it's really hard because I didn't realize it was $8 an issue. Prestige. I don't mind Prestige. I don't mind paying more if I elect to get a Prestige series, but that if you're paying retail. And obviously we don't.
Right.
We get discounts from where we buy our comics, but still, if you're paying retail, that's $40 for this series. And if you wait for a collection, you're going to be paying at most what, 30?
Yeah, for a hardback, probably, right?
So yeah, boy, that's. Mm-hmm. Why do they do this? This seems like a really great opportunity to sell something not as pricey so that potentially you get more people interested in and reading this stuff.
Well, but maybe the idea is that, I don't know, I don't know what the content, I don't know what the page count is. I don't know any of that kind of stuff. Maybe no one's even going to try it as a $35 book versus an $8. I don't know. I don't know how. I don't understand how other people's buying habits are. Do you know what I mean? Because for me, $8, that sounds expensive, and whatnot. And I'm looking at it less from a money standpoint than I am from how am I going to enjoy consuming it the most? And I would enjoy consuming it as a book as opposed to these because of how the information is delivered to us. Because $8, that's 2 Starbucks coffees, and the Starbucks coffees are probably even more than that. So to me, that, oh my God, that's $8 is not that big a deal to me. I mean, it's more expensive for me to go to the movies. So I don't, you know what I mean? So I guess I don't, it's not cost prohibitive to me unless you're in the mindset of, oh my God, comics used to be 35 cents or whatever, when we first started reading comics. If you're in that mindset, all comics are expensive. If that's the mindset you're going into this stuff as, I guess was why I'm looking at it from a dollars and cents standpoint. I don't know.
Well, do you think maybe you're getting more for your money because it's prose, or less for your money? Mostly prose, I should say.
I don't know, because I don't know, how do you weigh the two, right? I mean, now we're getting into what has more value, words or art.
Well, and it, because we are talking about comic books,
right? Well, this isn't a comic.
Less like a comic. Yeah, it's not. It's an illustrated story,
right?
Which is not the same thing.
Which is why I want it in a book as opposed to.
See, this is where it gets hard for me, Travis, because I like we were talking about. We want to support this. Mm-hmm. I want to read it sooner than having to wait 6 months to a year, probably closer to a year, to get the trade of this thing.
Right. That we may not see. Quite honestly, because they're already putting it out in a deluxe format. I don't know. And I'm saying I'm not getting it. That doesn't mean I won't. I probably will pick up the first one just to see what it's like.
Really? I can't. Yeah. I have a hard time. This is my comic OCD.
Sure.
I have a hard time buying one issue of something and then not getting the rest.
What'll be hard for me is if this is going to actually come out monthly, if it's not going to have big breaks in it, the hard part will be for me is because of how me and you order our books, I will have to.
You'd have to get all 5, essentially.
I either have to decide I'm only getting issue number 1, regardless,
right.
And then if I like it, I'm gonna get whatever the final format's gonna be, or I'm already 3 in before I actually have the first issue in my hand to read. I'm assuming the way it's coming out that I don't know, because they're not because it's all prose. They're not having to wait for an artist to do, I'm assuming, as much heavy lifting. So maybe it comes out once a month, versus like a lot of these other Black Label books, this other kind of deluxe format thing that DC is doing right now. Those books are not coming out monthly. They're coming out greater expanse than that because they're a deluxe format, but they're fully sequential art. So you're getting them slower. I don't know. So I guess that'll be the other thing. How quickly is this thing coming out will be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I have to imagine it'll be monthly.
I guess I'll wait and pull a trigger on that when I'm ordering the comics and it comes up in the list. I guess.
Yeah. So before we started recording, Travis and I were talking about the Comic Cons. I asked him about Emerald City because that's a con that both Travis and I try to go to.
Mm-hmm.
I've had to skip the last 2, I think. Yeah, 2. Did you go last year? You went last year.
Yeah, last year. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we're just talking about Comic Cons, and this is appropriate because this next bit of news, Travis, I know you and I think both you and I agree that going to San Diego Comic-Con is probably just like out of the picture. Not because of the expense or the travel or whatever, because I think we could swing that. It's we just don't want to go.
It's the utter. I mean, yeah, it's the utter zoo of it. I mean, there's a because you've gone, I've never gone. So there's a small part of me that's like, somehow you're missing a piece of the grand scheme of being a real comic book fan if you have not gone. But just the zoo that it is at this point, does not appeal to me, short of putting my foot in the door to say I've been there. That's it. That's all. That's the only meaning it has for me at this point.
Well, okay, great answer, Travis, because you can kind of do that with this next bit of news. Like my segue there?
Yes, awesome.
So there is a Comic-Con museum that's being developed. They opened, I guess. I'm not sure what the appropriate term would be for this, but I ran across this. This is the San Diego Maker Faire, and which apparently has been held in, as they say here in the article, historic Balboa Park since 2015. So it's a relatively new thing. I have no idea what this Maker Faire is, what it's all about. So if anybody out there who watches this video or listens to the podcast knows and would like to educate us, please do. But so they're turning this, what was a, hold on, where is it? Oh, the Hall of Champions, which is, the Hall of Champions Sports Museum. They've taken that and they're turning it into the future home of the Comic-Con Museum. So you go down there, and so it opened its doors for the first time to the public during that Maker Faire weekend. And so you get to go there and you learn about the Comic-Con, the San Diego Comic-Con, that Comic-Con. You learn about the history of the Comic-Con. And there's a bunch of other things there too, as well, that they were kind of doing it. So this got more or less, this was essentially a preview of potentially what the Comic-Con museum could be. I just thought it was really interesting that everything has a museum.
Sure.
And now we have one for Comic-Con. Is this, I don't know. Did you read the article, Travis?
I didn't.
Okay. You should go take a look at it.
Okay.
There's not much there. There's not
Yeah,
much to talk about, really.
I can't imagine.
Uh,
I mean, it'd be one of those things that I would never go out of my. I mean, I would never like. I got to go down there to see that. If some other reason I was in San Diego and I had some free time, I would poke my head in the door out of curiosity because it's a comic related thing. But really, that's everything they're going to talk about there isn't on the internet somewhere. I mean, what are they going to, what secret thing are they going to have? Oh, I'm going to get to see an actual physical copy of the first brochure from the first con. Really? Is that what's going to be?
wow, Travis.
I know I'm cynical. I don't know.
I know. So, in case people don't know, Travis and I are very old friends. We actually went the year before Crisis came along.
Yep.
We went on this long trip across the country and with his parents, and we stopped at all these different museums, and I was delighted. Yeah. I enjoyed going into those museums like nobody's business. And Travis, do you mind if I say you incessantly complaining? But to be fair, Travis had done that trip I don't know how many times.
Every summer. So that was what we would have been. What? We would have been 16? How old were we?
Ish. Yeah.
Ish. Somewhere around in there. And this trip was my family trip that we took every summer. Every summer. So yeah. Occasionally we came across a museum that we hadn't seen before. They had something that might have been interesting in it, but largely it was, I mean, come on. The Corn Palace. The Corn Palace.
It was great.
Like, no. At any rate, so yes, so for me it was like, oh my God, another one of these. So if you had gone I'm telling you from my memory, I cannot remember a summer that we did not take that trip. So that's, 10 at least summers of taking that trip and hitting those museums and whatnot. So
wouldn't it be funny if you talk to your parents about this and they're like, no, we only did it like 3 times. What are you talking about?
We did it way more than that. I mean, that would be funny, yes, but no, that's not the reality of it. So, but yeah, anyway.
Well, I am very curious once they get this thing like really established and what the exhibits will be, and having it built up is what I'm trying to say, to what we think of as a a real museum. So I again, like you, this is not something I would go to San Diego for, but if I happen to be in the city, I would definitely stop by to see this.
Sure.
It's just funny, a Comic-Con museum. Maybe we should do a comic book museum, Travis.
Yeah, you think?
That we could do that in our retirement.
Okay, yeah.
I can tell I've convinced him.
There are a few around now, though.
Well, ours will be better.
There's one in like Minnesota. I need to look
really?
it up. There's some archive, some big. They have a small con that they do, but they have like one of the universities has a whole bunch of stuff archived and whatnot. And I occasionally have YouTube subscribers that tell me I should be checking it out and whatnot. And I had one of them send me some stuff on it. That's been quite a few years ago though, but I'll see if I can find it. I'll show it to you.
Okay. Yeah, because I assumed that there were some sort of comic book museums out there, but I didn't realize it was.
Yeah. Well, this really is like, thing. This is as much as it's a museum. Like I said, it's at a university, and they've archived a ton of stuff about comic books and whatnot. Is what this is. So,
well, one of the local universities in our area has a pretty good collection of comic books and related material, right?
What?
Yeah.
Really? No, I did not realize that.
Yeah. I don't know what it's like now, but back in my college not undergrad. What's the other one? When I was in the master's program, that's what I'm trying to say. I had to find some academic books about comics, and WSU had quite a bit. And then through that, I found out, they actually have a stash of comics for academic purposes.
Really?
Yeah, and you can last time I knew you can access that material. Now, I think you have to wear gloves and
Oh, sure.
put on some protective gear, I guess. I don't know. But
Right.
anyway, it doesn't really matter, but
Cool.
we should go sometime.
I have a field trip in mind then. Yes.
Yeah, we should go check it out. Okay, so next up, so I think we talked about this before, right? How Marvel has relinquished its. Oh yeah, I can't remember if it was you I was talking with, or if it was George on the previous episodes. How Marvel has relinquished its like kids line comics, and now other people are doing them.
To IDW, right? Isn't it IDW that's producing that?
Well, so I guess this is related to that in a way. I just thought it was interesting. So back in not too long ago, back in June of 2017, Archie Comics was publishing Marvel Comics digests, and I think I remember seeing, a few of those in grocery stores, along with the Archie digest that you see, I think, just about everywhere there's a grocery store.
Right.
So I thought that was, when I saw those, I thought that was kind of neat. I didn't buy them. I don't need to, but so these were reprints, these digests, as they tend to be for like Marvel, DC. So back when they launched this, it was supposed to expand Marvel's, as they say, quote, reach and exposure, unquote, utilizing Archie's popular digest format and distribution channels outside the direct market, such as to large chain retailers. So I guess that's done for some reason.
Yeah, interesting.
They solicited Digest 9 and 10, but those have both been canceled. That was about a week ago that I got this news. So issue number 8, and I don't know if the digest, I doubt they were monthly, but.
Well, I think it's curious that they're pulling the plug on a outside of the direct market stream to get stuff into the common man's hands, with it being sitting on those racks as you're going through these, at least in the areas that I am, the racks as you're standing in line waiting to pay for your groceries and whatnot. And that's where those things typically set at. But they're pulling the plug on a venue to do that, whereas Marvel's main competitor, DC, is doubling and tripling down on putting the books in, like, Walmarts and whatnot. Kind of under the same guise, but not quite, but still.
So when you say they, who are you referring to? Marvel or Archie?
I'm assuming it's Marvel. Yeah, is it Archie decided that it wasn't selling?
That's just the article that I read did not elaborate. It just says Archie solicited those 2 issues, but canceled both of them earlier this week. So,
well, maybe they weren't selling, and maybe that's
what I presume. But that's why I wanted to bring this up, because I thought, given Marvel's.
Well, here's the other part is that I never got a sense, and granted, partially to the fact that I'll fully admit I'm more of a DC fan than a Marvel fan. I did not hear a lot of energy around this, whereas there seems to be a healthy amount of buzz around the DC books set in Walmarts. And when I say buzz, positive and negative, I mean, because clearly when the DC stuff came out, there were those retailers complaining that they were going to boycott, whatever, because, how dare they sell a book outside of their store, kind of a deal. But you never heard anything like that with the Marvel stuff. So.
Yeah, but like I was going to say, given Marvel's reach through the movies, this seems like a no-brainer to put these books, reprinting your material into, like I said, supermarkets and whatnot, in these digest forms where, mom or dad doing the grocery shopping, go to the checkout, and you see an Archie digest there, you see a Marvel digest, you got Spider-Man and Iron Man and Thor and, whatever on the cover. And it's like, buy this for the kids. It seems like a really obvious choice.
Right.
I can only imagine that it's been well, no, there's really two possibilities, right? At least two possibilities. One is they didn't sell enough, and Archie it doesn't make Archie enough money to continue to distribute those things for Marvel. Or two, we hear about this all the time. In fact, I think we talked about it last episode, where they canceled something because it didn't fit within their plans, their publishing plans. So
Right.
supposedly, right? So that could be this could be a casualty of that, perhaps. I don't know. It just seems weird that if out of those two possibilities, and I'm sure there are other possibilities that we could come up with, but it seems rather odd either way.
Right. I mean, there's all this talk about finding the larger audience, finding the audience outside of the direct market, that you would not be, unless it's unsuccessful, you would not be taking it away. I mean, I would think you would be trying to find a way to make that work more, not less.
Right. Yeah. And perhaps even, I don't, obviously we don't know the numbers, what sales are and all that kind of stuff, but it seems like these companies can afford, again, I'm just talking out the side of my mouth. I have no idea, but it seems like they can afford to have some loss leaders, such as those that, perhaps if those digests weren't selling as well, just to continue to have a presence in that market, and hopefully you build up. Now, granted, this has been a little over a year, and you were talking about the buzz with DC and Walmart. Well, the reason it's a buzz is because it just basically happened. This is over a year ago now,
right?
And quite honestly, I don't remember them talking about this. I don't remember the buzz relating to this announcement. But then again, I also wasn't really paying as much attention to the news until we started doing these talks. So that's my bad. That's on me. But still, I try to keep abreast of new stuff that's coming out or changes in the industry and whatnot. And I did not remember anything about this. And it was only, like I said, when I happen to be in a local Rosars that I see these digests on the stand with the Archie digests. So, but I thought at that time, good on them. That's really cool. And Madison said, "Can I have that one?" I said, "No." Because I didn't want to pay $6 for reprint material. I said, "You have a lot of comics you haven't read yet. Go read those." Perhaps
that's why it's
example.
Failing. And that's why it's failing right there.
It's all my fault. Okay.
Tight-fisted
Sorry, Marvel
parents.
Yeah. Actually, Madison asked for the Archie one. I said no. Anyway. I have nothing against Archie. It just, anyway. She has enough books to read that she hasn't read. That's the thing. Okay. Anyway.
Okay. Whoa. Let's slow down here a second. Look over that shelf you have right over there off screen. How many books are sitting on there that you have not read yet?
What's your point, Travis?
Okay. I guess I don't have one.
I'm going to read them.
And so is she.
Yeah, but I'm making the money that buys those books.
Yeah.
She's not. If she gets a job, she can buy all the comics she wants, and I will greatly encourage her to do so, as long as she's paying her bills.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on. I put this on here, Travis, for you, because it's a Green Arrow bit of news. But I wanted to find out from you because I don't think you've been reading Green Arrow recently.
I jumped back on with these ladies coming on the book.
Okay, so yes, it's been announced that the Benson sisters, after only publishing 5 issues of their run, DC is we just talked about changing plans by these companies. They decided to go a different direction with Green Arrow.
I have no idea what that means.
Yeah. So you jump back on with them coming onto the book, Were you liking it?
The first issue was really rough. The second issue is better. The third issue is interrupted basically with the aftermath of the Heroes in Crisis issue #1. The fallout of that, which wasn't bad, but clearly not part of the. I mean, not part of. I think what they originally they intended to do. They did a good job of weaving it in. Some of the stuff that I complained about the first issue makes sense with what happens, the way some scenes were and whatnot. I was enjoying it. It wasn't awesome. I like the villain that they had created. Basically a vigilante who uses social media to level justice on people. So he picks on the the 1% or the less than 1% who clearly are making choices that are bad for the rest of society. They catch that person and then they put them on social media on like the equivalent of like Periscope or something, and you can vote as to if they should be executed or what.
Oh my gosh.
And to start out with, it's kind of a lark. People go, oh yeah, kill them, because nobody thinks it's going to really happen. So everybody says, yeah, kill them. And then they do. They actually literally execute the person. And so then it's kind of the aftermath of that. I mean, here's these people on social media, so it's kind of a commentary on social media, the way social media works and whatnot, which I thought was interesting. And yeah, so I mean, that was some intriguing stuff. So I was enjoying it. I think it's unfortunate. I think sometimes they don't get matched up with the best artists as far as for what they're doing and whatnot. So I was intrigued, and I was enjoying it. I think the Benson sisters still have room to improve some of that stuff. But this was markedly better than when I started reading Birds of Prey, and they were the ones that were starting the Birds of Prey. When the Rebirth started, they were the ones that were tasked. The two of them were tasked with that. And there were enjoyable aspects of that. I like their characterization. I mean, I think they really get the characters that are there. My criticism would be more along the lines of pacing and some of that sort of stuff as far as how a comic book works. And then I think that's something that if you're new to comics, that's probably the toughest thing. And I would lay as much blame on editors as I would on them, because the editor is the person should be telling you this works or this doesn't work, and this is possibly how we should fix it, right? So Emerald City Comic Con comes around. That's their big announcement. They're going to be doing an annual, and it was implied without officially implying that they were going to be doing more Green Arrow work. Cool. Here's ladies writing a big male character, right? Which doesn't happen. You get lots of guys writing the ladies, but no ladies writing the guys generally. So all this stuff about it that I was excited to check it out. Plus the fact I'm a big Green Arrow fan. I've just grown up enough that if the book's not good, I've taught myself to drop it when it's not good instead of just buying it just to buy it. So yeah, I was looking forward to seeing what they were doing, but they're basically going to get this storyline. They're going to get this arc of this character and then of this villain that they're dealing with. And then obviously it's going to be done, I guess, which I don't think was originally the plan. So
this was, they had done 5 issues. Was that, did they get to complete their arc? Or
I think they will when they get to I think their last issue. I think that's it. I think they will have resolved. They will at least resolve the issue with this villain, Citizen. I think the villain's name is Citizen, and they'll have resolved that. I think, or they'll attempt to. I would assume.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen anything social media wise from them because they're being nice, to say that they were cut short or anything along those lines. So. And we haven't heard anything official from DC, right? I mean, it's basically we get the solicitation that says somebody else is doing it, and they go on. I think it was Sean goes on Twitter to say, "Yeah, as you've seen in solicitations, we're not on it anymore." Thank you DC for letting us do that. They want to go a different direction, and we're going to go back to focusing on writing TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, exactly.
which they do a lot of. I mean, they do a lot of. They've written a ton of the last 3 or 4 seasons of the 100, for instance, and whatnot.
Right.
So I mean, it's not like they're. So yeah.
Yeah. So Julie Benson wrote
That's who it
on
was. It was Julie.
Facebook. We had many more stories about Green Arrow. I'm having trouble saying that word today, Travis. Black Canary and Kate Spencer, which I didn't realize.
Kate Spencer was in the book. Yeah, they introduced Kate Spencer as being Ollie's lawyer. She basically is the corporate lawyer. She is the corporate lawyer. And they were flirting with some stuff that was kind of fun, because anybody who doesn't know, Kate Spencer at one point in the DC universe is a version of Manhunter. And that series was absolutely fabulous when it was out. Anyway, and she does not know that Ollie is Green Arrow, but knows that Ollie gets himself into all this kind of trouble. Well, and in this story arc, Ollie becomes one of the targets of the Citizen, because he's one of the 1%ers. And I guess back when Ollie was a kid, he was partying and living the wild life. He had gotten drunk and he had gotten in a car accident, and just thought he'd hit a tree or something. And lo and behold, it's been aired that he actually hit a person and killed this woman in her car. And Dad used his money and influence to pay the police to basically make it look like she had gotten either in a hit and run, or she had hit a different tree at the same time he was hitting a tree. And so, he's got this moral conundrum of, I'm a good person now, but I did something bad. And how do I personally deal with that? Plus also deal with this crazy guy who was on social media, on Facebook, killing people and whatnot. How do I deal with all of that? And like I said, I like those. Those are intriguing things to me.
Yeah, that sounds like a really cool story, actually.
Yeah. And so I was liking it. I thought those were interesting ideas. Still playing with the whole Ollie being the social. Anyway, so Kate Spencer is trying to keep him out of trouble, and in being the lawyer of a rich wild guy, she's constantly worrying about, don't do this. Don't get yourself in trouble. Don't go racing through town because he's being chased by people and whatnot. And she always is saying things like, unless you've got some secret life you're not telling me about, which of course he does have a secret life she's not telling about. So anyway, that's how her character plays into the book. So.
Oh, cool. But yeah, so apparently they had more stories to tell about those characters, but DC decided we were not the right fit for the book. And they were going in another creative direction. They wished the new team, writers Jackson Lanzing and Colin Kelly.
Yep.
Okay.
So I don't know who those people are at all.
Yeah. So yeah.
And I don't know if they're the new creative team or they're just we're throwing them in here while we decide what we're going to do. I don't,
right.
We don't know that, kind of a thing.
So are you now off the book?
No, I'll see what's coming next. I mean, anytime my new history with Green Arrow, anytime a new creative team gets on the book, I jump back on the book to see what they're going to do, what they have to say. I was doubly excited about the Benson sisters being on it. Because I like them personally. I had great conversations with them at Emerald City Comic Con and whatnot. I've had nice conversations with them online. So I like them as people. So it makes me doubly interested to try their wares. But anytime a new creative team gets on Green Arrow, I jump on for a few issues to see whether or not it's something I'm going to enjoy. And if it is, I hang around. And if it's not, then I've taught myself to drop it again and then come back to it.
Yeah, it's the same approach I have with Nightwing. Mm-hmm. Although there are certain creators I don't really want to follow, regardless of which character they're working on, or, working with. So sometimes I skip a run or two, depending. But
and I like to tell myself that's me as a comic book collector maturing. Because there was a time when it would be like I would just hate buy it the entire time, and I'm slowly breaking myself of that with titles.
Yeah, Yeah, me too.
And I think,
it took a long time, but
right. And I just keep thinking, 5 years from now, those will be sitting in a dollar bin someplace. And if I really just think I need to fill in the numbers, I can go buy the thing relatively cheap and fill in the numbers. I would hope so.
Yeah. All right. Next up is a new. This is Travis. Had you ever heard of this publisher, Vault Comics?
Yes, I love Vault Comics. What rock have you been living under?
I don't know. Tell me about Vault Comics from your perspective.
So Vault Comics is really new, but has definitely hit the ground running. Right now, one of my favorite comics is Wasted Space. It is put out by Vault Comics. It is wonderful. I've tried another comic. I want to say it's Deep Roots. I ordered the first issue and then forgot to order more issues. You know how it is when the way we order issues, we're ordering them 2 or 3 months in advance. I forgot to order number 2 or number 3, which I'm kind of bummed about because issue number 1 was just really rich and really interesting. And there's another new book out that just started, I think just a couple of weeks ago. I got the first issue. And I can't remember what it's called. Suspended something. It's about it's set in the 1800s. The British Fur and Trade Company, that big company, is kind of advancing around. It's got vampires in it, which normally anymore I'm not a huge vampire fan. But I saw some sample art, so I thought I'd pick it up because I like the sample art, and it's really interesting. It's about a vampire that has been kind of gone crazy in England, and the rest of Vampire Society decides he needs to go away for a while. So they put him on a boat to India. He gets to India, and there's things that are even more primal and powerful there. Maybe elder vampires. I don't know exactly because it's just one issue. But yeah, they get to India, and it's really interesting. And the art is really gorgeous, kind of thing. So they've got lots of stuff out and whatnot. They got, I don't know, I want to say they have like 7 or 8 titles, and for only been around for a year, to me that seems pretty good, pretty ambitious kind of a thing. But
it seems like 2018 is like the year of small publishers.
Well, you remember, last month Dan Didio was saying there were too many of these other little publishers taking a bite out of the. Right. There wasn't enough of us to go around to read it all and whatnot. And I guess the reason I came across it is because some of the creators have done other stuff that I was interested in, that I liked. So I was curious to see them do something else. And I hear in the last months, I've been trying to sample some of these smaller, I spend more time on the quote unquote other publishers, looking to see if there's stuff there that might be intriguing, because I know there's got to be other good stuff out there I'm missing. So, and Vault's kind of one of those things that's cropped up. So,
well, it's so funny because I do those previews episodes now, and I must have looked at Vault, but why have I not paid more attention? Mm-hmm. Why did I think I never heard of this publisher before?
I don't know.
Anyway, it's weird. Anyway, so that aside, I thought this was interesting. I'm always looking at what comic book publishers are doing for younger readers, because it's all great and fine that there's a lot of content for people like us who have been reading comics for many years. But if you don't expand the market to include younger readers and get them interested to be lifelong readers like us, you have the issue like we were talking about in terms of those ups and down sales numbers and the gloom and doom, sky is falling type stuff that we always hear about. Mm-hmm. But anyway, Vault Comics is launching a new imprint called Myriad, which I thought that was a pretty cool name given what they want to do, that will focus on, as it says, middle grade and young adult stories. And so they say Myriad is a place for emerging and established creators alike to reach the broadest possible audience. young readers want to make their own heroes, so our heroes must be equally reflective of all of us, representing who we are broadly and as individuals. This is a quote from, I said Daniel here. I don't know who that is now, because I have two different names in my notes. A seismic shift in readers' attitudes and expectations requires a myriad of choices, both in format and content. And so the name conveys that goal, they say. The first slate of titles are set for a 2019 release, whatever that means exactly.
Right.
But I thought that was really cool. They're going to be open to new content creators, and then the equally reflective of all of us line I thought was really cool.
They have doubled down on the diversity thing. As far as that goes, if you follow them on Twitter and that sort of thing, they are very quick to be a company that calls shenanigans on the people who are saying that, making our comic books look more like the world is a bad thing. They're pretty quick to jump on those people, kind of a deal. So I appreciate them for that too. I mean, the only thing that's weird about that article and whatnot, and them making these books, that all sounds so great, but how are they getting those books delivered to that audience? Because we know that the direct market is probably not the best place to deliver that to that audience. But I'm all for them doing this, and if they can find a way, because so many of us that read comics when we were kids, and so it's easy for, even if we've been lapsed for even 10, 15 years, it's easy for us to pick up comics because we remember reading them as kids. I find it very hard to find adults that never read comics as kids and trying to convince them that a comic is something that they might want to try, because it's just alien. It's not something that, so if you can get them, when they're young, when you get them young, well, then if nothing else, like I said, even if they aren't interested in, even if they are lapsed readers or whatever, they're not resistant to the idea that at some point in their life that, picking up a comic book, even if it's about not what they read as kids, would be an interesting thing. And as an industry, it needs that, right? I mean, that's clearly, we're not getting younger. And when we're gone, who's going to read the things? That's, so.
Yeah. Well, I imagine, considering that they say the focus is on middle grade and young adult, that to me, that is, that suggests, the Scholastic route type stuff. Yeah. Bookstores, et cetera.
Yeah.
But they do say, they'll offer a bevy of titles in a variety of unique sizes and formats, spanning original graphic novels, one-shot graphic novellas, which that was interesting, prestige format graphic albums, and serialized graphic stories packaged in robust formats. Can't speak today. Beyond the traditional 22-page floppy comic book.
Right.
But
cool.
Yeah, I'll be obviously now I'll be paying attention to the Vault Comics section of previews, because that story that you just described, that sounds really cool.
Yeah,
I'm kind of mad that I missed that. Anyway, there's so much.
There's a lot out there.
All right. More publisher changes. There's a lot of this kind of stuff this month, Travis. Dark Horse recently announced a partnership with Vanguard Visionary Associates, which is a Chinese company. And when I first encountered this, Travis, I thought that was interesting. So they partnered together to, quote, grow the Dark Horse brand internationally in both its media and pop culture businesses. And so the deal will focus on bringing the company's award-winning publications and product lines to new international markets, particularly China. It later came out, like a day or two later, that Vanguard Visionary Associates has acquired an ownership stake in the company.
Yeah.
What with who's I've already forgotten his name. Who's the guy that's in charge of Dark Horse? Boy, bad.
Henry something, isn't it? I don't remember.
Anyway, he said that he still has basically I think creative control,
Mhm.
something like that. I'm going to look this up. But that's, I mean, when I first read this, I thought, well, that's interesting. You partner with some people in some other areas, other markets. That that could be a really good thing. Mike Richardson is who we're talking
Oh, that's
about.
right. Yeah.
He's the CEO and founder of Dark Horse. But I thought
Well,
that was really
China,
interesting. That
China is a crazily huge market. If you can tap
yeah,
into China somehow, obviously billions of people, that's a market you want to be in, just from a
yeah.
pure financial standpoint. That's
But given the revelation later that they have an ownership stake now,
yeah.
um, what does that do to the Dark Horse brand? How do what does that mean? Is the publisher not doing well? All these questions just come to mind immediately that we have no information about.
Right.
We're just guessing here, but I thought it was very interesting that got the news about this one day. A couple days later, I get this additional news, and it
Mhm.
just colors the other news um, in a different light.
Well, I mean, it may be a number of things. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're
Sure.
not doing well. It could be that this is their only way. This is they thought was the best way to get into that market. Maybe he is wanting to move away from it at some point. So this is a way to may possibly cash in really big before you let it go to somebody else. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Just, I mean, big changes. We're going to talk about something here next, or coming up here in a second. Big changes, in these companies.
Yeah.
Um, he had Marvel be bought by Disney some years ago now, and uh, DC's had a bunch of changes.
Hmm.
It's just really, I, I, sorry for saying this word over and over, but it's really interesting to me how this stuff is happening. It all seems to kind of be happening sort of all at once, not really, but
Right.
a lot of things
Right.
converging
Well, and
around the
it's
same time.
it's not just that it's what's how does that influence what we're getting?
Sure.
Are we not getting something that we might want because some parent company suddenly buys something and takes over, or suddenly decides to take an interest in this thing they have? I mean, like we're talking about with the Dark Horse and whatnot. I mean, so this they haven't lost creative control, but how much leverage does that ownership start to have there? And so is there a level of censorship that might be involved um, because of that? So do because clearly China operates differently than we do here in the United States, for better or for worse, in a myriad number of ways. Um, so is their influence great enough that um, Dark Horse won't produce something that we might find interesting that might be considered offensive in China in some sense, right? I always hate to hear that. I hate the idea of thinking that some larger entity is keeping me from getting to see and or read something that might be of interest to me um, because of their values versus because I live in an ideal world where I'm a consumer of creative art, and it becomes less art and it's more corporate or whatever dogma, as opposed to just being art that the creators wanted to do because they're beholden to some other master, right? And it's
Okay.
always been that way. It's always been that way. It just feels like here recently we can see the strings controlling the puppets more, and that frustrates me. So
Okay. Well, then let's jump to the other thing then, because
okay.
this dovetails very nicely.
Yeah.
So this is the news bit that Travis brought to my attention some days ago. I think everyone's heard about the controversy over what
The
is
Bat member.
the Bat member. I was gonna say the Bat Wang,
Yeah,
the
sure.
Bat
That's what we
junk.
also calling it. Yeah.
Anyway, so there was this article talking about how the new DC head Pam Lifford, which I think whom we have talked about before, how she was going to take over um, for Diane Nelson, or to
Hmm.
replace Diane Nelson.
Hmm.
apparently, it's been reported that Pam Lifford was greatly displeased with the appearance of the Bat Junk.
Yep.
The fallout has led to a total rethinking of the adult-themed Black Label line, and also changes at Vertigo Comics to bring them into line with Lifford's vision, or perhaps DC's internal interpretation of Lifford's vision. So, is that not what you just described?
Yes. This like, so this is a person who is all about branding. She worked for Marvel Disney, is my understanding, at some point in some capacity. She's all about branding, so let's not do anything that's going to hurt the branding and whatnot. I mean, here's the one thing that makes me happy. Now I completely understand why there was a sudden freak out over the whole, over the whole bat penis in the Batman Dan book. Now it makes perfect sense, because I continued to just be baffled by how that could have gotten through all of the editors, all of the people that would be in charge of that, the conversations that would be have around that, that to make it to print. And then suddenly, so this is clearly somebody who actually was not paying attention to the day-to-day and now suddenly feels the need to be influential in the day-to-day in some sense, or at least has the bosses scared, and the bosses are Lee and Ditto are now turning around and scaring everybody else. The fact that it's going to influence Vertigo books infuriates me to no end, because there's no branding on the Vertigo books. The Vertigo books are these, especially once they pulled all of the DC proper characters out of the Vertigo books, that's a line of books that's always been just this kind of wide open, creative, whatever they're going to do. And if that becomes popular and they can sell it to somebody as a TV or a movie, thing later on, yay, all the more money that goes in their coffers. But if it's going to influence that, I find that doubly infuriating, especially if this person doesn't have the same values that I have. I mean, I didn't know that I needed a Bat member in my book, and I don't. But I'm not freaked out about it being there either.
Yeah.
So yeah, and now it's going to change what everybody who was involved in the Black Label books. It potentially changes all of their vision as to what they might have done. I thought that was part of the point of the Black Label book. It was an adult, and it was going to push the label on something or give us something that was completely different than what we were seeing.
It reminds me of there was some controversy many years ago over Disney films, because everybody knows Disney films, the stuff they put out, right?
Right.
But Disney as a company, as a film company, also produced films that were more mature. I'm not talking like R-rated stuff, obviously, but I think wasn't Touchstone a Disney imprint film company?
I believe so.
And they would put out films that were, I believe, some were rated R, but they were geared more towards an adult audience. That's just the nature of publishing, whether it's film or comics or books or whatever. Right. You have different lines that cater to different audiences. It totally makes sense. And doing this Black Label line now, personally, I didn't care for a lot of the concepts that they were putting out for the Black Label stuff, but there are people who are interested in those things. So it's just very weird. I don't think that if you publish one comic that's, and I don't know, was it suggestively shown or was it like very obviously shown it was Bruce Wayne's member?
I know that Bruce Wayne is circumcised. Does that give you an idea of how well I can see it?
Okay, so anyway,
just so you know,
that's not going to greatly impact the image, the reputation of Batman.
Oh my gosh, we now know Batman has a penis. I'm assuming we all knew that anyway, because I mean, if you look at his costume, it's hard not to know that he.
Well, he also has a son. It's very well known now these days to the general audience that Damian is his son. If you watch anything coming out of the Warner Brothers animation department, They've had a series of movies featuring Damian. So it's
Right.
like, come on.
Right. And like I said, in the book, it is not shown in any way that is remotely sexual. It's not like, he is doing anything with it. It's just what's between his legs. Literally, that's how it is in the comic. It's just, instead of having this, as he's peeling out of his thing and wandering the mansion, peeling out of his costume and wandering the mansion, and I think it's metaphorically, if I want to get nerdy about it, whatever, yeah, he's basically, burying himself from what he just experienced, peeling that all away. It's just there. It's just there. It's not in any way.
It's not lewd. It's not.
No, it's a naked body.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. It's it's just, to me, it's ridiculous. It's such a ridiculous thing to be hung up on and whatnot. And yes, it made outside of comic book news, it titillated some people, because of course we in Western society, especially in America, are hung up with all that kind of stuff so much that, of course, yes, you're going to have a few stand-up comedians that, with their talk shows at the end of the night, comment about it. But both of those, Seth Meyers and Colbert, they're comic book fans. They themselves are actual comic book fans. So it falls within their world to be, oh my gosh, this happened, kind of a thing, for it to be a conversation. So I think people got excited over it in a way that they shouldn't have. Unfortunately, this person, I actually liked Nilsson. I thought she did a fine job of, it didn't feel like there was undue influence from her personally. I mean, it was her job to be that person in between, but this article definitely lays this person out to be somebody who thinks they have to have their hand in it. And I don't know, it's not their job, or I feel like it's their job and whatnot.
Well, and to be fair, I'm getting this information from Comics Beat, and Comics Beat often will flavor.
Yeah, they have an agenda.
Their point of view.
Yeah.
In these articles. But going back to your point though, is this? I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm extrapolating. I'm assuming. But it's almost based on some of the things you were just saying, and just the general established facts that we have here. I don't know. It is. Do we have some sort of reaction to, comics are a certain thing. They can't be,
Exactly.
kind of like back in the, during the Wortham days.
For kids.
Comics are for kids, and you don't do certain things. If that's where this is coming from, or even the, and this is unfair to Ms. Lifford. Yeah, Lifford. Because we don't know. Nothing has been said by her as far as I know about
there's
this.
no official, that's my knowledge. Yeah, there's no official statement. Yeah.
But if I feel like I'm not fear. It's not fear mongering. I'm doing some sort of mongering, where because she comes from Disney, and Disney has that certain not interpretation. What am I trying to say here, Travis? The characters are what, they're very tightly controlled. Maybe that's what I'm trying to get at, right? And is that what we're seeing here? Is these her vision of DC Comics characters should be tightly controlled like Disney's, to the point where we get homogenized comic
Exactly.
books.
That's just, to me, it's like, I mean, I want to see something different, and I want to see something interesting, as opposed to the same thing all the time. Now, I don't know. I'm not always interested in what somebody decides to do that's different. An example would be what's currently happening with Nightwing. That's just not a story I want to read with that character at all. But
don't get me started on that.
But the flip side of it is, they're they're trying to do something radically different with the character for a while. And
Sure.
and I'm not gonna put that down in that sense, because otherwise we just get the same whatever, kind of a deal. So yes, if there's this somewhat narrow idea of what the brand is, and we can't venture away from that because we might hurt the brand. First and foremost, this comic, it's not like something that everybody's going to pick up, even though it was like the 4th highest selling comic or 5th in that list we were just talking about. It was like number 4 or 5. It sold 95,000 copies or whatever. So there's at least 95,000 some odd, issues of that out there. But I don't know, that disturbs me to think that I'm only going to get Batman that looks like this now. I mean, I already do get that to some degree. I mean, because come on, let's be real. They aren't gonna take him too far away from the core of what he is. But this is a completely different label that's about, let's do something different. It's a small thing. This small thing is not going to fundamentally change what the populace that makes all the money on Batman, the people who don't even read comics, that's where the real money for Batman is coming from. It's not going to change them. It's not going to change their thoughts on who or what Batman is by any means. What happened in that comic, is it going to change that? And then, like I said, further, when they kind of imply the whole Vertigo thing, that infuriates me, because it's like, that's what that imprint is about. It's always been, once it got established as being called Vertigo, as opposed to just being these weird titles that we first started reading before they labeled it Vertigo, it was kind of trying to do something punchy and different. Whatever. I
guess
I'm disturbed by the idea of a non-comic book, non-storytelling person potentially having that kind of power over the people who are actually the creating force. It frustrates me that Dan Didio has as much controlling influence as he does over DC, than to have somebody that's even further removed.
Well, then you probably wouldn't have liked if you'd been aware of this back then, but Jeanette Kahn came into DC Comics back in the 70s, late 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And she wasn't from comic books. She was from, I think, magazine publishing or something like that. And this is many years later now, we can look back on this, right? But she seemed to have had a positive net effect on DC Comics as a whole. So, I mean, we obviously have the potential for that here.
So I look forward to us doing this 5 years from now, whatever, so we can have a conversation about the positive or not influence of of editing the Batwang. So,
well, so I guess I should have. This was bad on me for not. I should have given the quotes from, because all we have are information from Didio and Lee about this right now. At least as far as I found. Didio said she is passionate about Pam Lifford. She is passionate about understanding about the characters and making sure that we expand the awareness of them. Because of that, we want to make sure that the tonality, the voice of our books have a sensibility that seems to match what people's expectations are.
Yeah, so, right. They're never going to move outside of these cookie cutter molds, then, if that's the case. Or they better talk to me about my expectations. That's all I got to say, right?
Yeah. So that's, like I said, I should have mentioned that first, and then, because it matched up exactly with what you're saying. He continues, though, which is something we should be doing anyway in our comics.
Sorry, boss. I didn't mean to do it.
Lee says, I thought that was interesting, and now this might be the way that it was presented in this Comics Beat article, but it says, Lee, : yeah, look, she has a and I put that emphasis there. She has a vision for what this business can be, an understanding that today's consumers live in a world where this content is available 24/7, and that a fan can come into this from a number of different touch points. She's looking at it from a very global, holistic point of view, and understanding that the experience is crucial to growing our fan base and growing the business. Now, obviously, that's obviously true. But yeah, it's really interesting to see the business through that prism. Yeah, that's interesting that he would say that.
They've been told. They got a phone call and said, "Look, guys. I mean, you know as well as I do from living in the quasi corporate world of the people above and below you, and how those conversations go." Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, DC Comics has been owned by Warner Brothers for a long time,
Yep.
but it's only been in the last, what, 5-10 years?
Since the movies, since superhero movies started making crazy ass money, that's when the sudden
Interest?
real corporate attention got
Yeah.
brought to. Mm-hmm.
It seems like it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I do agree with this. So this article here, this is by, I want to make sure I give credit here. This is from Heidi McDonald.
Mm-hmm.
She says in the article, Disney definitely had a lock on marketing image that WB struggled with, and she's saying this because she worked with both Disney and WB's consuming product departments years ago. So I mean that's why I was keying off of as far as the homogenization thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's yes, WB has struggled with it because Warner Brothers hasn't paid much attention to DC Comics until just recently.
Right.
So I don't know. It's a very interesting situation, and the impact of this is not yet known. We may not know this for a while what this really means, but it certainly has at least we two fans a little concerned about the possible direction that this may go.
We know there's no more Batwang. We know that for sure.
Well, it certainly undercuts. They've in pop culture parlance, Travis, they've swept the leg out of the Black Label line for sure. So yeah, what was in the pipeline that they will now retool or even just stop, just cancel it.
Yeah.
Will Black Label be something that will quietly go away after they published the things that they have already done, have commitments for?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And then what does that mean for the future? Will these creators be less inclined to push the boundaries and produce some potentially interesting stories?
Right.
Because they've been slapped on the wrist so far. Or, this could be a really good thing creatively going forward. It's possible. Come on.
Thank you for that. Doom. Doom
and gloom. There you go. All right. Well, let's move on to something a little more positive, maybe, from our point of view. I don't know. This is from Image Comics. This is something that is I have supported for a long time. In fact, if you go to longboxreview.com, and there is the Hero Initiative tab I have on the page. If you click on that, it has to do with this to some degree. But Image Comics has teamed up with the Hero Initiative nonprofit for a line of variants to support comic book creators in medical and financial need. And it says these variants, the sales of these variants, 100% of the proceeds raised by these Hero Initiative variant covers will go towards supporting the Hero Initiative. I bring this up now because the final order cutoff dates are in November, with issues being on the stands in December. So November 12th, 19th, and 26th for those issues. There's a lot of different things if you look this up. The Last Siege, Wicked and Divine number 40. It's a book that I get. Blackbird number 3. Unnatural 5. Did you mention that book, or am I confusing something else that you said earlier?
Not me.
Self-Made number 1, The Freeze number 1, Dead Rabbit number 3. So those are the first set of books that have the final order cutoff date of November 12th. And a bunch more for the next couple weeks. Like I said, I try to donate to Hero Initiative every year. Besides also buying the Hero Initiative books that they're usually anthologies that some publisher puts out. One year it was Image, another year it was somebody else. I forget now. Anyway, it goes around. They go around, and different publishers support the Hero Initiative in that way. So I always buy those Hero Initiative anthologies. But here's another way to provide some financial assistance to those creators who need that help you know, those creators who produce these comics that we all love. And here's your chance as a fan, as a reader, to support them in their time of need. So I'd want to highlight that. I always think it's a really cool thing that Hero Initiative does, and we should do our part as well.
Yep.
Did you look into these, Travis? These books? Are you going to get these variants?
I think I ordered some.
Yeah. Did you order them because you knew they were Hero Initiative, or you ordered them because you like the variant?
No, I ordered them because of I ordered them because of that. Most,
it doesn't matter either way, but
yeah, most books I tend to stick with the regular cover.
Me too.
On most stuff, so I don't. So if I buy a variant, generally it's typically extra, and in this case, that's what that was. That was as well. So like the Wicked and Divine, for instance, I picked the standard, Jamie McKelvey cover. That's what I always get. In this case, I bought a second one.
Oh, cool!
Just as a way to drop more money in the coffers.
Yeah, and I'm going to do the same thing for Wicked and Divine. I don't get a lot of these other books though right now in monthly, floppies. So yeah, there's no other one on here. I think I'm scanning these right now that I get.
I get Dead Rabbit, but I can't remember if I ordered that or not.
Well, it's not too late. You still can.
Right.
Anyway, there was that. Next up here, I'm going to skip that one bit, Travis. That's next here. Let's talk about. We talked about Vertigo. Just mentioned it earlier. And you're a huge Doom Patrol fan. If people have paid attention, anytime we talk about Doom Patrol, Travis is a huge fan. And oh gosh, I've forgotten the name of the imprint now. Gerard Way's imprint.
Oh, Young Animals.
Oh, Young Animal. Thank you. So, Young Animal, what, a little over a year ago now, more than a year ago. Got started, and things. Well, I guess the first round of books did pretty well in terms of getting them out and whatnot. But the second round, as they entered the last half of their first year, I think things my impression is, and I didn't get all the books, so Travis might be able to speak more to this because I think you did. Things seem to slip off the rails a little bit. In particular, Doom Patrol itself, that series. So they finally just recently announced, and I talked about this on my last previews episode, I think. They finally announced solicited the 12th issue of that book.
I just got issue 12 this week. Yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, it came out.
Oh, it's already out.
It came out this week. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, so why did I think?
Was that the trade they were talking about?
No. Anyway, doesn't matter. I put this on here not because of that particular issue, because it was recently announced that Gerard Way is working with writer Jeremy Lambert on the next chapter of the series. So I don't know what the time difference was between issue 11 and 12 in terms of publication. Do you know offhand, Travis?
I don't know what the exact. I can tell you what it feels like, but
what does it feel like? 7
months.
Yeah,
at least.
Wow. So yeah, we get issue 12. And the other funny thing about this particular news bit was issue 12 obviously just came out, as you said. It was mentioned in this article that issue 12 was a lead-in to what is the now traded Milk Wars crossover event.
Right.
I didn't read the Milk Wars event. I did buy the trade. I haven't read it yet. That's next on my reading list. So was it, you read the Milk Wars thing, right? As it was being published. Was the lead-in necessary? Was it, were you confused? What, can you talk about that a little bit?
Was it necessary? Clearly not. I enjoyed the Milk Wars thing. This story, I haven't read it. Like I said, I got it this week. I just opened the package up this morning with the comics actually in it, so I haven't read it yet. this is kind of a side story of a character, so I don't know exactly how this leads into the Milk Wars. Other than, yeah, this should have been the stuff that happened before the Milk Wars, and the Milk Wars is, like you said, it's already out. It has been out in trade. The rest of the Young Animals, the books that came out after the Milk Wars, went 6 issues and have ended before this came out. Just that's like, so you start putting the numbers together. That's how far back issue number 11 was before 12, and issue number 11 was delayed dramatically, as was issue number 10. Just to give you an idea, the last 3 issues horrifically late. Good story, disruptively late. I mean, as far as if there was anything entertaining in there, I have since forgotten about it, kind of a thing. So I don't know. I just had people asking me today, was this a good run of Doom Patrol or whatnot? And as more time goes on, I'm less inclined to say yes. There are elements I really enjoy. There are characters I really enjoy. Was this a good story, or was it a good Doom Patrol story? I don't know. Not super excited by it.
Yeah.
Like I said, elements I like, but I'm going to read this. I don't care, though. That's where I'm at with it right now. It being Doom Patrol, which I own a copy of everything that has Doom Patrol in it, and I am about reading this issue.
Okay. What about the return of Doom Patrol under Way and Lambert?
Well, I'm not excited about it being underway unless he's just throwing out ideas and somebody else is actually doing the work, because otherwise it's just going to be more of what we're getting now, which is massively delayed. Whatever. And I like to say, give the creator the time they need to put out the book they want to put out. But I think there's ways to do that without giving us delays without good reasons for there being delays. Make the delays in between arcs, like all these other companies do with their books. The creators get creative breaks or whatever, like Image does or whoever. They can do that at DC too, but don't make it just randomly wherever. To the best of my knowledge, these delays weren't because someone had become deathly ill or whatever. I mean, because Way was producing a Netflix Umbrella Academy show and is putting out Umbrella Academy. So it's not like the dude, was not able to work. Nick Derringen, who's the artist for most of the book, who did not do most of the art on issue number 12, is doing other work for DC. And I think that's because he's under contract with DC and he wants to get paid. So he's working where work's available, because I'm assuming this script wasn't available for him to work on. So that all frustrates me. I'm always excited for Doom Patrol. I'm curious to see what's next. I hope they get back to something closer to a core Doom Patrol book, as opposed to we're going to go the route of Morrison, but forget that there was that the stuff was based on something. Because that's what currently in my brain, the current run of Doom Patrol feels like. They've got window dressing characters, Robot Man and Negative Man, and of course they use Jane and some of that stuff, but it doesn't feel, it's heavily based on new characters, which I guess is okay, but it feels less like a Doom Patrol book and more like a let's just have some fun doing weird stuff. And I know a lot of people want to say that's what Grant Morrison stuff was also, but it wasn't. So, yeah, I don't know. I'll get it. And we'll see what it is. At this point right now, I'm not a very enthusiastic fan by it, though.
So going back to what you said about Green Arrow, where you're now, you've matured as a comic reader. Apparently that doesn't apply to Doom Patrol, or will it?
I don't know. It might. I mean, just to be, I have been buying this latest run of Doom Patrol, and I have not just been buying a copy. I have been buying 2. I have been buying every variant cover. So when issue number 1 came out and there were like 6 variant covers, I bought every single one, because it's one of the things I'm collecting as opposed to just being a reader. It is something I truly am collecting. I do consider myself a comic book reader more than a collector, but it is something I am collecting. So there is that. But yeah, It's close. It's close to me going, no, I'm done, knowing full well that at some point I'll be able to find most of it in a bargain bin someplace else.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can easily catch up if you decide you want to.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if easily, because it's not like I can just pop into the local comic book store and buy back issues.
Well, true. But
So,
there are resources for you to take advantage of to
yes,
accomplish that if you want to.
I can eBay them or something, yeah, or whatever. But yeah. So yeah. And like I said, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna read this issue 12, and then I'm probably gonna go back and read all the issues together, to re-familiarize myself with the whole thing and to have a real opinion. I liked it to start out with. I was really excited about it. There were great elements. There still are great elements in it. Even the new characters that are introduced, I like. But I'm just not 100% sure if a lot of my sour grapes is just the massive delay in these last few issues of it. Just makes it, and like I said, and with the creators producing other work at a normal rate, it makes me feel like they went, no, that this became not important, and it's important to me as a fan. So I'm kind of insulted by the run because of that, I guess. Isn't that selfish? That's incredibly selfish.
Let the content speak for itself, Travis.
Hard to do as a monthly reader.
Yeah, it's I understand the struggle. Yeah. All right. We're at the end here. One more thing I wanted to point out. This bit of information technically came out in November, but seeing as how we are recording in November, and this event runs through the end of November, we won't be able to talk about it again for November news. And it is something like the Hero Initiative thing that Image Comics is doing with the variant covers. But instead of supporting comic creators, this is supporting our troops. This is Operation Gratitude. So Jason Inman, if people aren't familiar with him, he has a podcast. He's done video. I think I was introduced to him on YouTube through the videos he was doing, comic reviews and such. He's recently become a comic book creator himself, through the book Jupiter Jet, and he's working on some other things. But he's also it was, at least, I don't know if he still is, one of the faces of DC Comics.
Yeah, social media faces.
Yeah.
Won that contest.
Right, exactly.
He was just a guy like me and you. And
yep. Except he's much
way
more
polished
about about this stuff. He seems to be a really good guy. I've interacted with him online and stuff. But anyway, so Operation Gratitude. So from November 1st through the end of the month, November 30th, Jason Inman is looking to collect at least 15,000 comics for Operation Gratitude to send to service members to read in their care packages through the holidays and into the new year. So you can do that. You can donate these books and other things as well. The comics can be from any company or genre and can include graphic novels and trade paperbacks, that's really good. I have pulled a bunch of stuff off my shelves, pulled some comics out of my boxes, and I've been trying to figure out what to do with them. I don't really want to sell them because they're not going to fetch much anyway. I was thinking about donating at least the trades and graphic novels to my local library, but until I read this article, I totally forgot about this initiative, and so this is perfect timing.
And he's been doing this for years, right? I mean, this is not a new thing. He's been doing this for years.
In fact, last year, I had culled some of my books out of my boxes and donated last year. So this will be a new thing, like the Hero Initiative for me. I'm gonna start doing this as well every year. But Operation Gratitude, if you go to www.operationgratitude.com, you could find out more information. Just to let you know, every year, Operation Gratitude sends more than 250,000 individually addressed care packages to soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines deployed overseas. Also to their children left behind, and to new recruits, veterans, first responders, wounded heroes, and their caregivers. Each package contains food, hygiene products, entertainment, uh, handmade items, as well as personal letters of support, and now comics. So like I said, go to operationgratitude.com. You can find out more information on how to donate your comics to our troops and their families and others associated with them. I just think that's a fantastic thing that Jason has, like you said, Jason's been doing this for years. People should donate. Like I said, I have stuff that I've read. I no longer need it in my house. So what better way to share the love of comics than to donate those books to people who want to read, and you never know, a person who's serving gets this care package and contains comics. Perhaps he or she has never read comics and they fall in love with them, and maybe pass that love on to their kids. So anyway, all around a great idea. I want to thank Jason Inman for helping to organize that and getting the word out. So anyway, go buy those Hero Initiative variants and donate your comics to Operation Gratitude. That should be your gift to the world this year.
For sure.
All right. Do you have anything else to say about that, Travis?
No, I mean, it's just, it's a great thing. I mean, I just can't imagine, especially if you're, like those service members who are overseas someplace where you clearly don't just have your general access to stuff and whatnot, get something like that does kind of, is a break from the other stuff you got going on with their jobs and whatnot. I would think would be great. I mean, that's in my head anyway, imagining, getting something like that's completely different or whatever would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Hero Initiative stuff, if you're not interested in the variant covers, you can go to the Hero Initiative website and just flat donate money. I mean, you don't have to buy a product from them. They take donations. So
yeah, and it doesn't have to be like during the holiday season. You could do it anytime.
Exactly, because they're constantly. I mean, we're always hearing about creators, especially the older creators who, aren't producing stuff now, so they're not like they're making lots of money and whatnot. And especially if they live here in the United States, where healthcare is expensive and whatnot, that need stuff. I think Phil Hester used the Hero Initiative stuff to help him get new eyes. I think his new corneas and stuff. So I mean, it's out there and it's helping the people who are producing great stuff for us. So
right,
for sure.
Right. Yeah. So so the official website for Hero Initiative is heroinitiative.org. Right. So and like I said before when we were talking about this, if you go to longboxreview.com and click on the Hero Initiative Challenge tab, that button at the top of the page, there's more information there about that as well. All right. I think that's it, Travis. Are we done? No more news?
I think we're done.
News is done. So like I said at the top of the show, Travis and I had talked as we were planning this, whether or not we were going to have anything to talk about, and not to mention maybe not talk long about it, and yet we've spent I think about 2 hours doing it.
Yeah.
So a normal episode for us.
Yeah, we're never short an opinion regardless of the subject. Jeez.
Yeah. So if anybody has any comments about the news that we have discussed, or things perhaps that we did not discuss, that you would like us to be aware of, and also what you think about those things, you can always do that by leaving comments below or at the website longboxreview.com. You can also email me at longboxreview@gmail.com. Travis, how can people get a hold of you, and where can they view your comic book stuff?
So
I was trying to say comic book opinion, but it's not really opinion. I mean, it's not just opinion. It's your comic book discussion. That's the word I was looking for. There you go. Go ahead.
So largely on YouTube, Odd Fellows Thoughts. And I am on Twitter. You can get a hold of me on Twitter. I'm a little quiet right now, but I am still around. On Twitter, unfortunately, I have not changed my name to match everything else that's Oddfellows Thoughts. But it is the _ Gaunt _ man. And you can actually email me too at oddfellowsthoughts@gmail.com. So if I'm wrong, if my doom and gloom on the end of creativity at DC Comics because of the corporate overloads, if you have a different perspective, let me know, because I'd love to have somebody be able to talk me off the edge of the building that I'm about ready to go over, because we've now got somebody controlling it all. So
yeah. So at what point, Travis, do you decide that things are at a point where DC you're done with DC Comics?
Never. Never, but I'll buy them reading them differently. Now, see, because I already read corporate comics understanding that that's what they are, and then they're not going to change to some degree. They're all going to, it's going to stay within, certain whatever. And I expect that, to be honest, from the main titles. I don't expect it to move. I don't expect Batman to go too far from what Batman is on the main book. I don't. But my expectation is if I'm buying something that's outside of that the leash should be off. They should be doing whatever. So,
or have a little bit of freedom. I don't know about the leash being off completely. It is corporate comics we are talking about.
But no one's reading. We've clearly talked about the conversation that no one's reading them anyway. Yeah, so how is it hurting anything? That's anyway.
All right. Okay. So get a hold of us in those ways if you'd like. And thanks for watching. For those that have watched the YouTube feed, and for those who are listening here on the podcast feed, thanks for listening. And we will talk news later, Travis. Bye-bye.